Hello and welcome to this short film made about Doulton Lambeth stoneware, produced from about 1860 to 1956. I'll be illustrating this short film with examples from my own small collection of Doulton pottery. By the 1860s, Doultons of Lambeth had become a highly successful company, and it was this success that enabled John Sparks of the Lambeth School of Art to persuade Henry Doulton to allow some of his students in to decorate some of Doulton's pots on a one-off basis. This is one such example, dating from the latter end of the 1860s. Here's another example. Jugs such as these were mass-produced at Doulton's, but this example is completely unique because of the decoration that's been applied to the body, presumably by a student from the Lambeth School of Art. These initial experiments proved popular, and as a result, from 1871 onwards, Henry Doulton employed an increasing number of artistic staff to work at the newly established Lambeth Art Pottery, as it was called. This example was produced by Emily Stormer in 1876. Like all the artists employed at Lambeth, she signed her pieces on the underside, and that explains the EES you can see here. Dating from a couple of years later is this unusual straight-sided planter designed by Francis E. Lee in 1878. In the design work you can see here, you can see early echoes of what would later become Art Nouveau. And it's to the Art Nouveau period that we jump to now, as we fast forward about 30 years to the early 1900s. This is one of a number of pots that I have by the artist Francis Pope, who worked at Doulton's from about 1880 to about 1920, but he flourished from about 1900 to 1910, producing pieces in the Art Nouveau taste, such as this, and this piece, which was produced in 1907. Here's the base of another Pope-designed pot, with his initials FCP, the initials of the assistant MH at the top for Marion Holbrook, and the date letter H in the shield, indicating that this piece was made in 1908. You can also see the circle mark, lion and crown, which was used between 1902 and 1922. We now fast forward 50 years to the last period of production at the Doulton Lambeth factory, when the tiny art studio was headed up by Agnete Hoy and her assistant Helen Walters. During the 1930s and 1940s, production of art pottery at the Doulton Works had declined to such a point that it had become virtually non-existent. Agnete Hoy was drafted in 1952 to give the Lambeth Works a much-needed artistic input. Pieces produced during this short period, from 1952 to 1956, have a lovely simplicity to them. Pieces such as this small bowl were produced in remarkably small quantities, and as a result they are really quite rare today. But they were produced during a short Indian summer of creativity at the Doulton Lambeth factory. With the passing of the Clean Air Act in 1956, the Doulton factory on the banks of the Thames had to be closed, and with it closed its art pottery studio. I hope you have enjoyed this necessarily short introduction to Doulton Lambeth pottery. If you take just one thing away from this short video, it's this simple fact, that between 1860 and about 1956, about 500,000 unique designs were produced by the Doulton Lambeth factory and its artists and assistants. The reason for this is the lack of mass production. Pieces such as this vase by Francis Pope were complete one-offs, or at most made in pairs. As a result, Doulton Lambeth is a world away from the mass-produced pottery by Moorcroft, Clarice Cliff, Susie Cooper and so on. Oh, and apologies for the rubbish camera work.